What do you think?
I think we're dead meat. Real dead meat.
You dead meat!
Go ahead and laugh, you guys. If I ever find a little bastards that did this, they're dead meat.
Great to meet all of you, actually. I feel like I'm sitting with just a bunch of genre vets here. Because, Jimmy, you wrote Babysitter Killer Queen and Cocaine Bear. This is your directorial debut. Ray, you were just in Smile, too, which I think was one of the best horror movies of last year. I absolutely loved it. And Samara, I don't even know. We'll be here all day if I start listening. Ash vs. Evil Dead, Ready or Not with our friends Radio Silence. We love those guys. Mayhem, Asriel, Scream. Like, it's incredible, the amount of work that you've done. And I think you've been fully embraced by the horror community and the fandom as just, like, one of the best people working in the genre. So thank you for all that you contribute to that. That being said, this isn't really a horror movie. It's kind of its own thing, I feel. And it's a thriller for sure. It's very comedy. I was getting kind of like Coen brother vibes almost. Kind of like screwball, comedic type thing. It even almost felt like a hangout movie for some scenes where we're just sitting with these characters. And Jimmy, I'm curious if you set out with any specific genre in mind, or if you kind of just wrote something and wanted to let it be what it is.
Yeah, I think both of those are kind of true. Like, I knew that writing or just like putting a header on what you're writing of like, put it in a genre box, makes it an easier sell, you know? It's like, oh, this is a thriller, it's a horror movie, and people aren't scared of making $5 million or, you know, low budget horror movies.
Yeah.
And I think that I wanted to use that as just like make that box as big as possible and throw everything into it. So yeah, that's sort of how I went about it.
Yeah, I mean, I love when movies don't feel constricted by the genre that they're supposed to be and are able to kind of explore what they are. And obviously humor is a big part of this movie, and I'm assuming that was always going to be the case.
Definitely. I think that like there is a version of this movie that will never see the light of day that's a little more serious, and you know, the score is a little bit more down the middle. Like a lot of the jokes are taken out of it, and I think that it sort of betrayed what the goal, like the mission statement was for making this movie, and it was just like going completely insane and trying to make sure that people are having a fun time watching it. And if they get anything more than that, then that's, you know, up to them. And if they get anything less than that, then I don't know what to say.
Yes. So is that something you found in the edit then? Were you playing around with the tone and, you know, landed on this? Or was it something you found during production? Like, when did you arrive at the point to where the movie became what it is?
I mean, our editor is Joe Galdo, who's like insanely good and instrumental into like putting this movie together. But I don't care who it is. You can't really hide I don't care. Like the best editors in the world can't really like cut around what Ray was doing in this movie in the best way possible. So like it always had this tone at the core, which is something that Ray and I spoke about from like the beginning of like Ace Ventura invading your house. And I think that like there were just versions and cuts where you lean into that a little bit more and lean into the absurdity and try to, or, you know, go the opposite way. And to the producer's credit, Hadil and Brian Duffield and everybody at Lucky Chap was like, they were just like, go crazy, do whatever you want.
Yeah, I'll definitely want to talk about the producing team later because it's insane the amount of talent that you have behind this movie. But when it comes to like Ray and Samara and the rest of the cast's performance, it feels like you kind of gave them a lot of space to improvise, kind of play around with the material. Is that true? That's how it comes off.
Yeah, I was like trying to create an atmosphere on set where they felt like they were given permission to just go nuts, like, or bring their own ideas and personality to the character. So, and then once you realize that it's better than what you had written, you're like, okay, just let's like talking to Michael Alden Lloyd, who's the DP, is like, okay, let's just roll camera, let's make sure that it's in focus, and just like, and let them go. And then everything that they brought to it, just like to me, is what makes the movie.
Yeah, Samara, obviously you have a lot of chemistry with Jimmy, seeing as you guys are spouses. Normally, my wife would be sitting right next to me. She got called away on an audition, but we also work together.
Oh,
And, it's great working together, right, with your spouse.
Yeah.
It's so nice to have that camaraderie and that shorthand and that familiarity. So, Samara, I would love to hear about your approach to the character, especially because I feel like this character's a bit more mean than your usual characters. Usually you're playing someone who is just like completely rootable. Even in The Babysitter, where you're like kind of the villain, you're still like
Right.
the one that we're all rooting for. Here, your character's a little, ignorant, a little hoity-toity, a little arrogant,
Yeah.
and I love seeing that. Like a different shade of your character, even while still being really funny.
oh, thanks. Yeah, I just kind of interesting you say that. I mean, I think the like female pop stars in the 90s uh were just thrown everything. There was so much trauma, they had no real control over the press and the narrative around them. And I think I watched a lot of documentaries, and they just had to build such a tough exterior
Yeah.
and not put up with ding dong men usually
Yeah.
who are telling them what box to be in and how to look and how to act and how to behave. And like, I love Madonna. She was just unapologetically herself and ruthless to be successful in that industry. So I think there was this kind of unapologetic side of her that I really liked. And yes, of course, there was this kind of, I mean, I assume she didn't come from sort of a lavish background. I sort of assume that she started in sort of a scrappy, had to fight for herself. But there is that sort of bubble that she's in where she does get given candelabras by Liberace and doesn't know where her circuit breakers are because her houses are so big. But I just really like that she was almost proud of that. She earned that. So I'm going to flaunt it, and men do all the time. So what's wrong with me doing it? Men show off their cars and they go, yeah, look at how, awesome my house is. And I put in I like that she was really forthright about that. And men sleeping around with all the sexy ladies of the time. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to do that too.
Yeah.
I really liked that. And it also just lent itself to how she behaved with Dewison and these maniacs in her house. She never really fell into the sort of victim role. She was always really stood her ground and was much more measured and like looking for a way out rather than getting caught up in the sort of trauma of it.
Yeah, I can definitely see all that. And I didn't mean to imply any like negativity towards the character. It's just like a different edge.
No, but it is. No, it totally is.
Yeah.
No,
And obviously she's heavily based on Madonna, both with the time period, because it's 1990, which I feel is Madonna near her peak. And I mean, she was even in a baseball movie, which is so funny to me, with the bat that comes into play. I'm a huge Madonna fan, so I was super excited to see this. I was just at the Celebration tour when it was in town. And,
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, at the Forum. It was a great show. Yeah, it was awesome. This was speaking my language. I find it funny that right now there's been a lot of genre movies about pop stars. I'm thinking of Trap and, of course, Ray, Smile 2, which feature like big pop stars. And I feel like they're big right now because pop is kind of having a resurgence with the Sabrinas and Chapels and Charlies really coming to the forefront. But this movie, it was written years ago, right? I saw that the script was added to the blacklist in 2020.
Yeah.
So what were you drawing on when you were thinking about like this pop star? Were there any specific instances that you had in mind, or was it just something you came up with at the time?
There's that Tiffany documentary, I Think We're Alone Now.
Yeah.
That like informed a lot of Ray's character as well. And that I think that like specifically in the 90s, it was like right now we're all kind of like stalking from the bathroom, like on our Toto bidets. But but back then you have to knock on someone's door and actually like, put on pants or take them off in Paul's in Paul's life. But yeah, I mean, those Madonna, obviously, but there was just in the research and the way that Sam wanted to play the movie, which is like heavily, she had a lot to say. I mean, she says that, Sam just touched on it, but it's like that hardened exterior that you must have had to build up then specifically, now too, but then specifically when maybe people weren't getting called out and it was still appropriate to you know sexualize a 16-year-old girl and that kind of stuff. It was all something that sort of built this character that has sort of been through this before. Like you can tell in that scene when Eric Dane's character tells her that Paul has escaped from the institution, that it's like, okay, I'm the type of person that has left a concert and had some rabid fans waiting outside for me, and has been like maybe followed home from the grocery store and stuff like that. And it all kind of plays into the idea that she's not that afraid of him. She's obviously frightened, but and at the end of the day, she like does feel some compassion for him, and that's kind of what we're shooting for.
Yeah, it seems like everyone does. All the other characters kind of have an understanding that like Ray's character just isn't okay and more needs help than to be, because they're reluctant to even call the cops on him initially, because it's like this guy needs some help. So Ray, with that kind of character, what did you do to kind of try to find that line of like a character who is threatening, obviously, to some degree? He's stabbing people, someone get a knife out of that hand, but at the same time, it is a kind of a sympathetic thing, especially as we learn more about his backstory. So, was there anything that you had in mind of like, I won't do this because that would go too far, or were there any like real life people that you looked to as inspiration?
I think that was one of the main hurdles that we had, was just like how in this world that we're talking about of pop stars and fame and sort of like, objectifying each other, this hyper reality, like how you can make a character that even after the first time you see him, he stabs somebody that you're still kind of with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're still kind of with him. And then you're kind of thinking, well, he is a nice guy, Maybe they belong together. I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a world where like he isn't crazy in that moment, and Sophia's making that pledge, and he's like, "Yeah, no, let's do it," and then he live happily ever after. Like there's, in my mind, like that's the movie that's going on in this person's head, and then, really like Jimmy and I just kind of were spitballing movies back and forth that we were talking about that we liked, and that, but ultimately we're just creating a character that even after starting here, you could still be with them on the journey. And it, like, how do you make, like, even that initial stabbing is so friendly.
Yeah. It's almost apologetic. Yeah.
Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like he doesn't know what he's doing. You know what I mean? And like, that's the thing where, like kind of creating that type of thing where it is this guy that is somehow harmless, like at the end of the day. So I don't know. It was just kind of having fun with those balances, and then just understanding that with Jimmy's, filmmaking and Sam's performance, like it's really their reactions and the camera shots that like create the menacing part of the character. And then I could just show up and be like, hey, and they'd be like, and so that was kind of like the freedom, and then just kind of enjoying that, complete freedom that I felt in this character, to pick and choose like what part of this fantasy am I engaging with? You know what I mean? And then just to find that line, Jimmy just let me like fire off things and just like, hey, yeah, that worked, or that didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine there were probably a lot of alt takes for this.
Definitely a lot of alt takes, and he just kind of, I just kept going until he said cut, so.
And even when I did say cut, you would keep going.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I shouldn't have said cut. It's just like, just let him go. That's it.
That's the benefit of digital, You're not worried about the film stock running out.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So how did the project come to you, Ray? Because obviously, I imagine I understand how Samara became attached. And one of the producers that you mentioned, Brian Duffield, he worked on the Babysitter movies. So I imagine that's probably where you started working with him or met him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did Ray join this fold? Did you guys know each other before this production, or?
No, we didn't even hire Ray. He just showed up and he's like, I'm doing it.
Just in that tux, ready to go.
It was, I think it was, and apologies for, I've told this story before, but I wasn't really I watched a couple movies that Ray had done, and I had talked to Emerald, obviously Lucky Chap, who had done Promising Young Woman and worked with Ray, and everybody was sort of in support of it. And then we met for, coffee and spoke for 2 hours, and I knew that at that point he didn't even have to audition in my mind. I'm surprised that they didn't make him in the end of the day, but I'm so glad, because it was the type of thing that Sam and I knew that he was going to be able to pull this off and make it a character that it wasn't really written. It was written that way, but it wasn't written with the enthusiasm, And I think that part of the character, which I think is now something that's so important to the movie, and why I enjoy watching the movie mostly, is because it's Sam talking to Ray.
Yeah.
And what the fuck is he talking about? And giving the audience the ability to laugh at these, kind of, serious topics.
Yeah, and you struck gold with both of them, because Ray's antics are so, energized, like you said, and then Sam, if I could call you that, just because everyone else is, you were the queen of reaction shots, and, just little throwaway reactions to things that happen, and there are so many shots where I'm I just laugh off your you're just slight facial reactions, and it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. The whole movie feels like it was made by a bunch of friends hanging out. That's why I asked if you knew Ray ahead of time, because if you had said that you guys have been friends for 10 years, I would have believed it. It feels was it a relaxed set like that with that kind of tone?
Yeah, totally.
We would hang out. We hang out on weekends, and now he lives down the road, and we hang out all the time. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
They can't get rid of me.
We fell in love.
Literal.
He's just so warm that you're kind of is this? I can't believe that we've known each other for a week, and we're already he's calling me at 11:30, and we're talking for 2 on FaceTime in bed. Just about it.
Yeah, it's great when you find those people though, and it. I know that I feel like some people have an idea that you stop making friends after your teenage or 20 years, but I feel like the friends you make later on in life and the ones you connect with so quickly, they're some of the best friends, because it's we don't have to put up with all the bullshit of pretending to like each other. We just connect, we vibe, and so it's fine if we're close right away.
Yeah, it's just it was such a joy to work on, and I was tearing my hair out through the majority of it, and then go through something really stressful, losing a piece of equipment, or it didn't show up, or whatever would happen that a day of shooting a movie will throw at you. And just in the dark depths of my own brain of just where this could lead to, if
then Ray and I
we
going
don't pull
la,
it
la,
off.
La. Yeah, just keep it light.
Ray coming up to me and being like, so I think in the next scene I'm gonna be naked. You know what I mean? And then I'm just completely every time running into these the whole cast, it brought me out of just existing within my own head of like what this movie was, and like just it helped me become more present. Not to get too sentimental, but I just had a lot of fun. Yeah.
I could tell that, like, I was like, oh, I bet everyone was sad when this one wrapped, because it just seems like it was a fun time. I want to ask about two of the sequences that kind of stand out to me, because they kind of come out of nowhere, and they're maybe what made me laugh the hardest. Apologies to Sam and Ray, because they don't involve, well, no, one of them involves you, Sam. But the first is the cop dancing, which has such a perfect setup, because he's like, I got an audition tomorrow. And you're like, oh yeah, it's a cop in LA. That makes sense. But then when it does that pan down and it's this long, unbroken shot of a guy who is shockingly good at the song and dance. Because like, I love musicals. I watch them a lot. And this guy, were you friends with this guy, or was this role written this way? Did you cast him and then he was like, hey, by the way, I can do this?
That scene was written, admittedly, but I can't give him enough credit for like what he did with it. The casting link for those auditions were the most entertaining thing. It was like, Sam and I would binge them just for fun, even after we had already cast Matthew. And because all of the, we wanted to hire people that can dance. Mm-hmm. So they sent out a casting for dancers living in Vancouver area, and take a song, like, know what the scene is, take a song and do your own dance to it. And some of them were like incredibly lit, like on actual stages they were probably performing on in Vancouver, and like, so everybody did everything from Singing in the Rain to what Matthew did. There was just something about the smile on his face when he was doing it that just made me chuckle. And yeah, so he crushed that, and not like an easy scene to do. I mean, like,
how many
a lot
takes
of times
did you have to do of that? Because that's an unbroken oneer. And that's my favorite thing about like old musicals, is that the camera just holds and you get to watch people do this unbroken routine. So that's why I loved it so much.
Yeah, that was kind of the point. I'm glad that you caught on to that. But like that, it took, I think it was like 10 takes, and then we got it on the 10th because the sun was coming up. But we did those 10 takes in like an hour.
Wow.
Or maybe we had like 3 hours to set up and shoot and wrap before the sun came up. And it's Vancouver in the summer, and you're like, oh, we're gonna get screwed here. Mm-hmm. So like pulling off the timing of that, because you conceive these things and you're like, well, if we did it in one, then that's less setups. We know we only have 3 hours to do this. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, no, that was way harder than what we had to put ourselves through.
Yeah, because like a single mistake, it's like, all right, back to one, or reset everything. And especially because it's not even just the performance. It also, the camera swings around, and you have the arrival, the leaving. There's a lot of other blocking that's happening there that none of it can go wrong. I'm sure that, on the 8th or 9th take, if he's nailing the dance, you're like, you better park that car where it needs to be parked, man, because we don't want to do it again.
And they nailed that every time. You have an 11-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Who's in the scene that ends the scene on a line. Like Ray, or Eric Dane, who's just on walkie, like being cued. I can't, I mean, the AD department just like crushed that scene. It was like, we honestly did not have time. So they pulled through for us.
And then the other also involves the song, the Celine Dion duet. Is fantastic, really comes out of nowhere, and it's a great song. I mean, the whole soundtrack of this movie, by the way, is fantastic for anyone who enjoys 90s music. But that song, that duet, like, how did that come about, and how is that performed? Is that you singing, Sam, or?
No, that was a professional.
Is that a dub for both characters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of what makes it so hilarious, is that singing is incredible. Who did that singing? Because it's like just the texture of the voice sometimes. It's like, wow, damn, dude.
We hired 2 vocalists. One of the producers, Bronte, and I went to a recording studio at 7 a.m. and recorded them. But also they had to, one of them had to do it in a French accent.
Oh yeah.
and the other had to do it sort of like acting as if Sam would in the scene, and we had to do it before, so I wasn't quite sure how Sam was gonna perform it. So we had to
Oh,
like
sure.
decide on a lot of those things, and it.
Were you there for that,
yeah.
Sam, to be able to help inform? No, so that was
No,
just
I was asleep.
okay. Nice, good call.
It was a blast to shoot that.
Yeah, it's so funny the way it comes out and builds, and it's great.
Yeah, and just another instance of like I mean, not literally, but like just get it in focus and let them do, because I had a different idea for what Sam's character was going to do and how they got into the fight and all that kind of stuff. And like at a certain point, if you hire the right people, you can have I guess the benefit and the gift of being able to throw your ideas out,
Mhm.
And it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, I trust that if we just shoot these, like our talented cast, then we're going to get something better than what I had thought of. And like 100% of the time, that was the case.
Yeah, that's definitely the benefit of having such a great cast. Is like they'll find it, they'll bring
Yeah.
it. Yeah, they'll do the work, which is great. It's so nice to have that reliability. Yeah, other producers on this film, like you mentioned, Lucky Chap, which is Tom Ackerley and Margot Robbie, and I mean that they just produced Barbie. They're Academy Award nominated producers of some huge films. Barbie, I loved My Old Ass, Promising Young Woman. So how did that come about? How did you guys? Because I know that like Sam, you and Margot were both in Babylon, which I think is an underrated movie. I thought that it was.
I know.
You know,
It's so good.
Like I saw it, and I keep thinking about it, and I think that's
It's so good.
it's a sign of an interesting movie when like months and months
Yeah.
later you're like, oh yeah, Babylon, man, that was a
Yeah.
trip. Yeah, but is that did you guys know each other before that? How did that relationship come about?
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
friends before.
Okay.
And then yeah, Jimmy, you can tell the story.
I'm talking most here. Can you guys pick up the slack?
Well, Jimmy sent them the script and they fell in love with it, and then we went over to their house and kind of Jimmy pitched his idea for it, and then we just thought it would be so much fun to all work together.
Yeah, we were in the middle of
and
COVID
then-
too, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because it happened back then. Yeah.
But yeah, after that we were just off to the races. I mean, I kind of stayed out of I call it the adult side of filmmaking, or the producers and stuff. I just show up and be a rodeo clown. But
Yeah, they were always
Yeah,
there
Jimmy, you
just
can-
like just to provide support. And anytime I would like second guess myself, they're like, no, as long as like, so just try to shoot something that's fun, and I think at that moment we were like, okay, we have something that is shootable and contained,
Mhm.
and we're sitting here in COVID. Like, let's just do something that that we all enjoy making together. And they just that company just backs the filmmaker,
Yeah, it seems
and
like
the
it.
cast.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, go for it. And then they know what you want. And once you have those discussions, obviously there are like creative things that are always open. They're always open conversations. But once they're on their side, they're on their side. They just block and tackle, and they're pretty heavy hitters.
Just because this originated as like a COVID era project, just real fast, what was each of your favorite COVID hobby or way that you got through the initial lockdown and everything? Because I know that lots of people,
Yeah.
Animal Crossing or, taking up knitting. My wife learned how to juggle. So what'd you guys do during that time?
I love puzzles, and I started doing massive like 2,000 piece 3D puzzles.
Hell
which
yeah.
was insane. I made all of like Diagon Alley and Hogwarts.
Are you a Lego person too, or just puzzles?
I do like a Lego, but
Okay. Because I've done we did the Titanic, which is like 10,000 Lego pieces. It
Wow.
sits on a shrine in our dining room.
that's so cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
made
Holy
the
shit.
Lego flowers, which was cool.
Dude, we have those Lego flowers too. Yeah. They never go bad.
They're really cool.
Yeah.
Never go.
Smell great.
Ray, what about you? What'd you
Smell
do?
Beautiful.
Honestly, I watched like 4 movies a day. It was just complete
Nice.
paradise. I just did nothing but eat and watch movies.
Hell yeah. It's nice to pause the world and be able to catch up on some of the classics.
And like read every book that I promised myself that I was going to read. I was like, if the world stops, I will read. And then
there was time now. Yeah. And Jimmy, besides writing movies, what'd you do?
You played Call of Duty every morning.
Oh,
yeah.
Call of Duty. All right.
I played video games against like 11-year-olds in the morning.
I was gonna say I'm more of a Fortnite guy, which is a kids game, but I feel like all games are dominated by kids, and they're gonna shit talk you when they kill you, man.
I'd walk into the kitchen and Jimmy would be like, "Hey, kid," and I'd be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, that was a good. I forgot about that.
I guess last question as we wrap up here, real easy one. What happened to the candelabra with Sam's face on it? Because I feel like that's
got it.
Yeah, I was like, that's such a fun prop. I know that you had to have kept that, like held on to it. So is it displayed in your home or is it kind of just tucked away?
No, it's displayed.
In the kitchen. Yeah, it's displayed. It's in the kitchen. We bring it out for dinner parties and stuff.
Yeah, and people that don't know it's from the movie are like, wait, why do you have Sam's face? And then the other one went to, there were two candelabras. Mm-hmm. The other one that was in the movie, went to Sam's manager.
Oh, he got the hero one?
He got the hero candelabra.
Awesome.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that we tried to take home from the movie. But mostly what I wanted was the cherub pissing. I wanted Ray to have that in his front yard.
A big missed opportunity. Unfortunately,
I didn't get it.
And all I got was this.
Oh, is that like the
miniature?
Yeah. What's that called? The
I don't even know.
Proof of concept kind of thing.
The mannequin piece, I guess.
Yeah.
And the thing in Brussels. Yeah, that's where that came from.
Okay. Well, guys, it was great talking to you. Before we go, I just want to share this personal experience with Samara. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, 87 North was opening their facility in Hollywood, and they had like a big opening party, right? You were there. Mm-hmm. We were there as well, my wife and I, and we saw you, and we were like, oh, that's Samara Weaving. We got to tell her how big of a fan we are. And we like walked up, and I was standing right next to you, but you were in the middle of a conversation with someone else, and we were like, we don't want to interrupt. So I just turned to whoever was next to me and started talking to them. Turned out to be another actor. His name's Kyle Allen. He was in like West Side Story and some other things. But he was there with he was there with his personal trainer for some reason. And me and that guy actually hit it off. And I was really disappointed because by the time I finished with them, you were gone. And I was like, damn. But bright side of that is I hired him as my personal trainer, and me and him are like best friends now for the past few years. So that was because you were talking to someone else. I got super buff. Yeah.
Look at that. Well, you're welcome.
I think so.
Sorry we didn't get to hang.
Yeah, but I mean, so talking to you has been a long time coming. I'm so glad I finally got to do it. So glad I got to meet you as well, Jimmy and Ray, because I'm sure I will be seeing a lot of your stuff in the future and that we'll have another chance to connect.
Let's do it.
Well,
it'd be great. Yeah. Thanks, James.
Thanks so much for the time, and best of luck with Borderline.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.